And we've got everybody between the Zoom and here. Approval of the agenda is the first. I'll move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any changes to the published agenda? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the agenda as drafted signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next is approval of the consent agenda.
I'll move to approve consent agenda as presented.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Anything anyone would like to pull out, talk about, or has questions on,
I'm just going to be abstaining from the minutes.
right?
I would just make a quick comment on the executive summary for the audit report and just appreciation for that. And I think the findings were acceptable. And so congratulations to the finance department, and I was appreciative of the summary.
I know they were disappointed in the timeliness, but it's kind of the way audits go these days. And so it wasn't us that was the delay on the audit this particular time. We've actually been having our stuff to the auditors in a timely basis, so.
I appreciate Kathleen linking to the full audit for those of you who want to try to find how much is in the parking impact fee fund.
Yeah, I didn't read the whole,
It's so,
I didn't read the whole
89
89 pages, but so I appreciated Nicholas's summary.
Yeah, the executive summary is really, it's come a long ways. I feel very good about where we're at. And so thanks for pointing that out, Heather. Anything else anybody would like to draw attention to? I will draw attention then, in here is the annual approval of the certification of compliance for town road and bridge standards and our network inventory. It's an annual event. So just so people know what's in there, if you want to take a look at our road inventory, it's all there. So we have a motion to approve it as presented with an abstention on the minutes. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next is citizen comments. Do we have any hands up? Well, I'm waiting to see that. I do have one that was submitted in abstention. Victoria is not able to be with us this evening, but she did send an email. And I think a way to answer her so that everybody has the visibility on this was her question is, if the library bond passes, but the private fundraising grant funds fall short of the goal, would the select board increase either the bond or funds from the option tax to cover the difference or choose not to? If they did choose to increase one of those, would it require another vote? And she said it would be helpful to know this before the vote. I'd like to try and answer and make sure, correct me if you understand it differently. We voted to have a specific amount, no more than 4.5 million paid for by property tax funds. And so if we were to have to go above that, because even that's the way we warned it, it would be the appropriate thing to take it back to the voters, in my opinion. I don't have a legal opinion, but I would not feel good about going forward if we had to tax more than what we have said. Is that everybody? That was the way that we approved it as a select board, and I just wanted to make sure. So Victoria, hopefully that answers your question, and we will.
I got a question about that.
Yes.
So I agree with you. On the select board level, we're not comfortable with going above 4.5, right? But the people are going to approve that whole $17 million for us. Do we need to go back to them for a different amount?
You mean if it came to be 17 and a
gonna be-
half or something like
No, the
that?
bond's gonna be for 17, and if the bond passes
Yes.
and they don't raise that much money. So I'm saying like from 4.5 to, let's say, $5.5 million. Do we have to go back to the,
I feel that the answer is yes, because we have committed in our, does somebody have accessible our warning for the bond vote? I'm pretty sure it says 4.5 million.
It actually, I think, says the total amount.
Yeah.
The amount
Yeah.
from the local option and the amount to be raised by grants. and
Yeah.
others. You have to do math, actual math to come up with the 4.5.
The 4.5 isn't called out specifically.
It isn't.
But the math is available to most people. And I think to Farhad's question, we would not need to rebond, but
that's my question.
Brian is suggesting that we should have another public vote.
At least at a town meeting.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree.
I feel good about the way things are
Yeah.
tracking.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't want to promise the voters one thing and then slide something through that's $1 million difference without at least having some public discussion or a vote about it.
Yep. I had one other public concern that came to me this week that I will raise on behalf of Kevin Parizo of Seymour Street. He wanted to see where we were as far as providing emergency services to Seymour Street in that end of town in the event of future flooding events such as we had last summer. Brian, you've spoken with the state on this?
I did, and I spoke with Michelle Boomhauer. And I also talked to I also talked to the Vermont Rail.
Oh.
And I found my discussion with Michelle, but I don't find my discussion with Vermont Rail. And they have a location that they would be supportive of it. And I just haven't gotten there to walk it and see exactly. I need to walk it with Chief Shaw and make sure, and then get back to Michelle. But where I was thinking is not where they would want it. Because it's, number one, there's more tracks, and then there's a lot of times it's impeded by cars and stuff.
Sure.
Other than the ladder truck, I would be curious too, as maybe a third route is going right down Mill, down by Lazarus.
Oh. Yeah.
I probably can't get the ladder truck through there, but I think you could probably get a lot of other emergency vehicles through there. So
Through Marble Works.
down through Marble Works.
Yeah.
But I think the issue with the underpass is there's a dip between the southern portion of Seymour Street, Maple Street, and,
Yeah, I
and
think
the other
even-
part, and the water was flowing through that dip and then down Lucius Shaw Lane. And
I think even Marble Work will be isolated from Seymour Street.
I don't know how deep that dip is, but
Are
it's,
you talking about going in Maple Street, Ryan, by the Lazarus building?
Yeah,
Lazarus Park now.
Lazarus Park, yeah.
I walked it with that in mind, and it seemed fairly feasible. And it could be more feasible if there was a mountable curb and a possible relocation of one of the streetlights there. With that, I think that would be a good third emergency option. We're talking about backup plan to a backup plan.
Yeah, you would just shut traffic flow off from there and leave it open. But yes, I have, if Kevin's watching, I have had discussions and I need to keep pushing on it.
And he just wanted to make sure that it was still something that was underway and that we were thinking about.
Yeah. I used our contacts that we've developed over the years with the other stuff.
Excellent.
So,
Can I bring up one other thing? I don't need an answer tonight, but if staff could give us an update on Creek Road and when that road might possibly be open, especially as farmers are trying to access that road to begin working fields and stuff down there as things dry out. So if we could get an update on when Public Works might think that road could be opened.
yeah, with the warm weather and this wind, it's drying fast. So,
And what the condition of the road, if there is any further damage or so.
okay. Are there any hands up out there, Kathleen?
No hands.
Okay, then I'll move on to appointments to boards, committee, commissions, and official positions. We basically we've nominated a full slate, and we have two positions where there's one vacancy and two applicants. So Means Woods trustee and town agent. So if we could probably just keep our focus on those two positions.
So I'm going to withdraw as a candidate for town agent. In the email that went amongst the board members about this, there's a little history about my discussion with Kathleen on this. This is a dinosaur archaic position in town government, and it's really a title only, and there's no duties unless the select board or town manager specifically assigns one. And in my time as town agent, despite my offer to Kathleen to do anything that was beneath the dignity of the town manager, she has not chosen, to my dismay, to avail of that. I was kind of in jest, but anyway, there's never been any task or duty which has been assigned in my time. And my other note on that is that people who are awarded a title, and this is no disrespect to the other candidate, but the board might decide it best to keep this in the list of minor changes to the town charter and not fill it. But that's just an option. I think Kathleen can advise Angela if you want to appoint her for the honor, glory position with no authority title only.
So with Fred withdrawing, you have one applicant. I think it's up for discussion. When would we be doing another charter change?
I think we'll gather things. And in my discussion with Fred, we were talking maybe this fall, if our schedule allows. It is quite a process just to go through all the public hearings and track on that. I'm keeping that on our list of possible retreat and action items.
Okay. So we'll just make sure she understands the limitations of the title for right now. Means Woods trustee, then we're down to one position. Are there thoughts on Means Woods trustee applicants?
I would just offer that Robert Wayland came to our last meeting, introduced himself. His application cites that he has experience in trail maintenance, and on the basis of that, I support appointment of Robert Whelan for the vacancy on the Means Woods trustee, as the deed calls for different categories, and I think he fits in the conservation category.
Any other thoughts or comments?
I didn't have, I was trying to find, I can't find all of a sudden I can't find it. But anyway, One thought I had was in the summary of applicants, for the Conservation Commission, there are 2 positions. It says 2 applicants, but the blue indicates that they were not
I don't.
interested, so I
There's 2
think,
purple down below
oh,
on the
sorry.
next page.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Eric Moody and Dave Allen.
You're right. Thank you for pointing that out. I couldn't get beyond the page break there.
Sure.
Anyway, I was just thinking maybe one of them would consider.
Ah. Oh, moving over there.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So,
Do you want to move the slate, including Robert?
so moved.
I think you need 2 motions, one for accepting all of them non-competitive.
Oh,
Then we have 1 motion for this one.
sure.
Okay,
We can do that.
so I move to appoint all names listed in the packet that are being submitted for non-competitive positions.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
And then I would move to nominate Robert Wheeland as Queenswood's trustee in the category of conservationist pursuant to the means deed of gift.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments on that? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Well, thank you all for those that did apply. We appreciate you stepping up to help the town with these many different committee assignments.
I have one other comment under this agenda item, and that's I would, under the board's authority to modify the appointments, I would move to promote or elevate Jeff Bratzbus from the status of alternate to a full member on the infrastructure committee in recognition of his good role as chair.
Structure.
Can we do that?
That's the question.
What do you think, Kathleen?
I'm not sure we're allowed to do that.
I mean, the
The-
infrastructure committee is our creation.
Yes.
So we can set the number of voting members on it.
The other part of that is to recommend that he be given a term instead of a life sentence. 2024 to 2027, 3 years as the other members.
Oh, who just joined us?
Jeff Bratzbus is the,
Who's that? Who's that?
Oh, these are our friends from Vermont Agency of Transportation who are up next.
Oh, fantastic.
I thought they were photobombing us.
They look so happy. We're not used to having such happy folks join us. Welcome, Taylor.
So-
and
So
Ian.
we're just going to promote him from alternate to,
regular member like the other.
so he's already the chair.
Process-wise, are we okay with doing that?
Well, he's already a member. He doesn't need to be nominated.
Mhm.
If he were to be nominated, then we're supposed to
Yeah.
do it one meeting and then appoint the next, but we're just giving him a term and a
Full
status
membership.
that reflects his role on the board.
His dedication and, yeah, absolutely.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Any comments on that? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay.
Great.
All right, we're moving on to our friends.
Sorry, can I just,
Yes.
will you send an email to him or
Yeah, Beth will take care of that.
someone should come from you in the town?
You're welcome to congratulate him too.
You want,
It's all in order.
you want me to do it? I'm happy to do it. I just don't want to.
As
Oh,
the
outs-
long-standing
outside-
chair, I think it'd be great
Outside
coming
of,
from you.
outside of the
I think
correct
that's
protocol.
perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take care of it.
Is Emily also joining us?
Emily is on with us.
She is?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So first up is Taylor and Ian. Taylor, do you have the share screen option?
I do, yes. Thanks for having us. Oh, I lied. I don't.
Okay. Hold on. There you go.
Great, thanks. Can you guys see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks for having us. My name's Taylor Sisson. I'm a project manager in our traffic design section at V-Trans. And I'm joined by Ian Griffith, who works with me in the traffic design section. He's a project engineer. And yeah, thanks for having us. We're here to talk about a scoping study that we've been working on at Route 7 and Exchange Street, Happy Valley intersection, and associated Route 7 corridor from that intersection to the town Class 1 limits. We presented last week to the infrastructure committee our preferred alternatives both for the intersection and for corridor improvements. And so are here to present to you, hopefully to endorse the alternatives that we worked to come up with. So I guess with that, I'll get into it. Our presentation is pretty quick, but here's our agenda. We'll just talk quickly about the project area that we've been looking at, the existing conditions as they are today in the project area, the purpose and need of why we're scoping at this location. Again, talk to you about the preferred alternatives both for the intersection and to the Route 7 corridor. And then give just a quick history on the prior correspondence with some of the stakeholders, and then what the next steps are. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ian.
Yep, so this is a visualization of the project area. It's outlined in red. It begins at the US 7 Exchange Street intersection and extends southerly to the Middlebury Class 1 town highway limits. The proposed roundabout would be located at the US 7 Exchange Street intersection, and the proposed corridor improvements would be located along US 7 to the south of that intersection. Some information about existing conditions through the project area. US 7 is classified as a principal arterial, and this stretch of US 7 has also been identified as a high priority bicycle route. Traffic control at the proposed roundabout location currently consists of stop control on the sideline approaches, and traffic is free flowing along US 7. The posted speed limit along US 7 through the project area is 50 miles per hour until just north of the Class 1 town highway limits, where it drops to 40, going into town there. The existing shoulder widths along this stretch of the US 7 corridor vary from approximately 3 to 8 feet. And the average annual daily traffic along US 7 through the project area is approximately 9,150 vehicles per day. So, to cover the purpose and needs statement of the scoping study, the intended purpose of this scoping effort and proposed project is to enhance the safety and operational efficiency of the US 7 and Exchange Street intersection and associated US 7 corridor for all users. So, the identified needs are as follows. Improvement of the corner sight distance at the intersections, specifically for vehicles sitting at the stop bar on the Exchange Street approach, which which is currently inadequate by 155 feet. Improved level of service at the intersection, which in its existing condition is a D for the Exchange Street approach and a C for the Happy Valley Road approach. Improving the aging drainage infrastructure along the corridor, which was identified as a concern by V-Trans maintenance staff, and improving the shoulder width along the corridor to safely accommodate bicyclists. And lastly, improvement of the pavement condition and guardrail condition throughout the corridor. So what you see here is a visual of the proposed single-lane roundabout that was chosen as the preferred alternative through this scoping effort. It was originally identified as a preferred alternative back in 2004 as part of a previous scoping study looking at this location. A single-lane roundabout would increase the safety and efficiency of the intersection by eliminating sight distance issues, calming traffic, allowing all approaches to operate simultaneously, and eliminating angled side collisions, of which there have been 2 in the past 5 years, resulting in injury at this intersection. Preliminary modeling the proposed roundabout design using Sidra performance analysis software suggests that a single lane roundabout would improve the level of service to an A for all approaches at almost all peak hours, with the lowest level of service for any approach becoming a B. So, looking at the corridor now to the south of that intersection, the preferred alternative to address the identified need there are expansion of the paved shoulders to a minimum of 5 feet through the corridor, ideally 8, which would accommodate a 3-foot painted buffer and a 5-foot bike lane. Through conceptual 3D models generated as part of the scoping effort, it was found that the construction limits resulted in relatively little impacts to parcels adjacent to the corridor. And to address the aging pavement condition, it's recommended that a 2-inch depth coarse mill and overlay be performed along the corridor. And to address the aging drainage infrastructure, it's suggested that the existing culverts be removed and replaced. And lastly, replacement of the existing guardrail is also, that's suggested. So, back to Taylor.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. So this slide's actually a little bit outdated at this point, but as Ian mentioned, the scoping for the intersection actually was done in 2004, where Selectboard endorsed roundabout, single lane roundabout at the intersection, and then kind of our revised scoping effort. We met with the town engineer and public works director, and we've also met with the Aspen County OPC. We've met with numerous V-Trans stakeholders internally, and since have kind of gotten internal blessing to put our preferred alternatives to the town. And like I mentioned last week, we met with the infrastructure committee, and our preferred alternatives were endorsed to come before you all tonight. So our next steps for the scoping effort, we're really getting towards the tail end of our effort. So hopefully, based on what you've heard tonight and the work that we've done and the reports the draft reports that we've sent to the town, we'll get our preferred alternatives for both the intersection and the corridor work. We'll get those endorsed by you folks. If indeed that is the case, we'll finalize the work that we're doing on the scoping report. And then, we would be looking for final internal V-Trans approval of our scope. And at that point, that would really kind of wrap up the scoping effort. And we would be looking to move the project into design for construction in the future. So those are our kind of next steps. So with that, we'll take any questions that you might have.
Questions, anyone?
I got a quick one. The 8-foot shoulders are on both sides of the road,
Yes, yep.
and the south end where it shows with the diagram, where exactly is that? This is class 1 town highway limit. So where is it? Is that a landmark that I know?
Where High Street intersects.
Or just exactly
Yeah,
up here?
just north of High Street.
Would you have any issues with getting right of way from private property owners if you are planning for an 8-foot shoulder?
That's something we definitely, have looked at, based on kind of our very early level, design and modeling that we would do at the scoping phase. We actually were seeing that we wouldn't have a lot of right-of-way impact, even with 8-foot shoulders. I know things get pretty tight, at the southern portion of the corridor. And, obviously there's some good hill there on both sides of the road, that, we'll have to take a closer look, assuming, we advance this to design. And that's why Ian kind of mentioned, that we really are looking for 8-foot to wide pavement shoulders where we can. But, want to approach the design realistically too, and have, I think, if we were to run into more issues with tying those slopes in, we really are shooting for 5 to 8 feet, of shoulder width.
Okay.
The 5 feet is more kind of our low end to accommodate bikes. But 8 foot is kind of our desired maximum where we can get it.
Thank you.
Other questions? I'd just like to comment on the infrastructure committee discussion, which focused for quite a while on the idea that this was an important bicycle amenity. And for one thing, it was raised that could the investment in all of this to benefit bicycles be transferred to Exchange Street? And we were told that this is a federal aid highway funded project, and the funds aren't transferable to bike paths and local bike paths. Is that correct, Taylor?
Yeah, and that's a good point. So yeah, the project right now, the scoping effort has been 100% federally funded. Going forward, we're not entirely sure, but is likely the intersection could remain 100% federally funded. The roadway work could end up being more like 90% federal, 10% state. But you're also right in that the money really allocated to this project would be for improvements to the intersection and along Route 7.
So following up on the bicycle interests, I'm not an avid bicyclist myself, but my understanding is going up the hill, headed north, you can imagine a bicyclist struggling, at least I would sure be struggling, winding a bit in the lane. And now North Pleasant Street is what it is. We have very steep slopes coming down there. There isn't room to add more lane width there. But when you get to High Street, where this project would start, it seems like the widening would be useful for the bicyclists heading north. On the other hand, coming south, the hill enables bicyclists to move at practically the speed of the traffic. And so it seems like the greater need is on the east side going north to benefit bicyclists. And I think the sense of the infrastructure committee review was, well, there was concern about the width and how it would connect or taper and around the private properties and the hill conditions right at the south end. Is that fair to, I'm reporting on what I heard from both Luther Tenney and Heather Seeley, but I don't want to speak for Heather if you want to modify or correct that. But, the speed of traffic that comes down the hill with the aid of gravity southbound, the wider the road is, the more likely higher speed, and higher speed can work against the safety of bicyclists. So on the southbound respect, it seems to me that there isn't such a good case for full lane width being all of 8 feet. And there are property impacts and taper questions there. But on the going north, it seems like, and you have challenges there, particularly at the Hill House, which is across from Grandview Drive, where it's a very steep, close embankment, and it'll make their driveway steeper up to that building. So that's the first house going north in kind of the middle of the project. So I'm just wondering if without taking anything away from the priority and importance of moving ahead with a roundabout, would it be harmful in a motion to express a community's preference for a 5-foot width going north? Taylor?
Yeah, I'm not sure, I don't think it would be harmful. I think, I think the other kind of piece to this is, with this being a US route, it's on the national highway system, and really, we strive to get 8 feet along NHS routes, and also because we've kind of identified this segment of Route 7 as a high bicycle priority. So I really think, our preference would be to get as much of 8 feet as we can, or as much of the corridor as we can. But I do think, that like, we're able to remain somewhat flexible, in our designs, and this scoping effort is to really kind of set the stage for design, and give some good parameters for us to work within, but is also an iterative process too, where we'll be looking much, we'll be really dialing in the design a lot closer and looking a lot closer at really where our slopes will touch down if we do, 8-foot shoulder widening versus 5-foot shoulder widening. And, I think that for me, I would like to get as much of the corridor to 8 feet as we can. The more separation that bikes have from traffic, the safer the condition is. So, I think we would want to strive for that as best we can, knowing that there are some constraints out here. And then, obviously, the area is constrained now, and that's why there are 3-foot shoulders, along that southern stretch. But we would really like to improve upon that if we're coming through with a project of this size. So, again, I would still kind of like to maintain that 5-foot minimum, 8-foot maximum flexibility. And I think if, if we're able to push forward with that as our preferred alternative, we'll be happy, and, can try to keep things moving as far as getting the roundabout in place as best we can. We do know, that the roundabout work itself is going to have some impacts to utilities and right of way and, environmental. It's a big project, and it's going to have some impact regardless. Obviously, the bigger the project and the more parcels affected, has the potential to slow things more. So we, in all of our projects, try to keep those things in check as best we can when we're working on our designs. And I think this would be no
Taylor, a couple questions. Number one, is this a like a collaborative process where if we approve to move forward with the design, then as you worked on it, you would bring it back to us to see if there were any concerns, similar to what we've done with some of the other state projects? Okay. And then estimated timeline. I mean, are we looking at being able to get something into a 5-year plan, or are we still 20 more years out?
No, I just saw something, it said 2027 summer construction, target construction. On the website.
I think.
I missed
yeah,
that.
We're more in the 5-year timeline. I would
Okay.
say.
Because we've been collecting, V-Trans has been collecting impact fees from builders and future users to support the roundabout. And I think that there's probably some onus to make it a priority and get it done once you start collecting fees towards it. And we really need it as a town. That's our number one priority, and we really would like to see that get done.
Yeah, I definitely hear that. Yeah, I mean, we'll have to make sure that we should have funding to begin design basically as soon as we wrap scoping. So, at that point, we'd be looking to get a designer on board and get the design moving, which, again, depending on impacts to right-of-way, utilities, environmental, some of those things, 3 to 5 years would be moving quite fast, I think, for a project at this level. We would probably be more on the 5, or maybe 5 to 8 years. But that's kind of the timeline we're on. But at least for this, having kind of money allotted to begin design will definitely help keep momentum better than scoping 20 years later.
Did Emily have her hand up? I see
Dan has
Did
her-
Dan does too.
I think Emily did quite a while ago.
Okay. Taylor, would you turn off the share screen so we can be on the full screen and I can take a look at the participants? Yes, we have Emily with a hand up and Dan.
Let's see.
My camera's not working tonight, but the only piece that I wanted to add, speaking of funding, is it was either the day or the day after we had our infrastructure meeting, funding was released for a head grant for V-Trans that we could potentially do a budget just for the next couple of years to sort of get it started. I didn't want to project further out than that without knowing all of the priorities. We haven't hashed it out entirely yet, but it sort of gives an idea of how expensive it could be. Some of those costs, especially in the engineering side of it, are higher than what they would need to be if we were creative in how we hire the engineers. I think historically the town has hired engineers to start working on a project and then we've applied for SRF funding. And so we get through the first step or two before we cycle into SRF funding, and it can speed up the process and also cut the engineering costs pretty significantly. So we can be a little bit creative. Those are sort of worst case projections. SRF funding, the engineering is set at a percentage of the overall cost projection for the construction. So those rates are based on the construction costs at what SRF would fund the engineering at, the ones that I included in the spreadsheet. But typically we see engineering at more like 30 or 40,000 as opposed to some of those that are 200,000. But still a significant increase in what we've been seeing for capital. So I guess I wanted to we wanted to have the conversation and put it out there that we are likely looking at a rate increase, and this is sort of the thought process behind it. We'll be working on the budget in May, starting May 2nd with the infrastructure committee. So cycling back with the select board soon thereafter to start the conversation.
At some point, it might be helpful for all of us to just, when you've got the study and prioritization and everything, to help us visualize it. And I think we'd need to block some time for it, but it being such a large issue, especially after what we just went through, I know that there's not just concerned citizens, but some of the businesses that are very dependent upon water and whatnot. And I know you're doing a phenomenal job, but I don't think we fully, as a board, understand. So when we get asked questions, it'd be nice to just know the prioritization and the rationalization for that, and maybe have a chance to get our questions answered. So I think that's more closely aligned with, as you're working through this with Aldridge.
Yep. What would be helpful for me to provide? I know the map that I had included, the resolution is really poor on it. So I can break it out into quadrants if that helps.
I think,
know
yeah.
Brett had also requested pipe, like the composition and the different materials of pipe, which isn't necessarily how locations are being prioritized, but if it's helpful to see it that way, I can break it out that way. I guess I need to know from you just so I can communicate it in the best way. What would be helpful?
I think breaking it out in smaller quadrants, maybe in the hot spots in the areas you're talking about.
Okay.
It's tough to tell with the map that's here. It's really difficult because I remember I asked for, like, Exchange Street, the number of breaks, and it looks much worse on this map than if you had just the list of the breaks.
Yeah, this map is all, the breaks that are on here are only through 2021, or 2022, I guess. It was
Yeah.
from what I got from one of the water staff last year. And so it's not, I updated it with some of the locations from this past winter.
Yeah,
But not everything is on there by any means.
okay.
And
And
some of these are repaired, but some of the locations, Washington Street or there might still be breaks showing on there, and really that's a brand new line.
yeah, I had a sense that that's part of what I was looking at, because I had the data you had provided me. So I took the map kind of for what it's worth, but
I can play around with it to give a more accurate depiction of what we saw this winter. Maybe in the last 2 or 3 years, what we've seen for locations, and remove some of these older ones from the data.
I think that'd be helpful, because I think we've impacted positively a lot of areas, and it doesn't really show on this map. So
Yep, no, agreed.
if we pull off the old data and put just the recent data on.
I think, I guess the main conversation that I've been having with Aldridge and Elliott is to find as many ways as possible to increase redundancy in the system.
Yeah,
And so I think that's the main goal of how we're moving forward,
Okay.
additional well, additional storage tank, running lines to connect to the industrial park in case Exchange Street goes down, or all of those different variables, just looking at the different factors like that, is sort of how we're approaching it.
okay, that's a good takeaway for me. Fred?
One of the ideas we had toyed with early on was running distribution, like just a solo distribution line. So that, I mean, a transmission line separate from distribution, but the cost, it doesn't make sense. You're looking at a $20 million project. And I think we could gain that same amount of redundancy more effectively in smaller projects and better reinforce the system. And, even looking upgrades at the same time. So that's the general approach that we're taking at this point.
Yeah.
Emily, it's Fred. I'm wondering, is there a written report on that would help us understand the cause of the flurry of surge breaks that happened this year? It's just difficult to understand why, a burst pipe that decreases pressure in the system creates a water hammer that increases the pressure enormously. And that's one comment. And the second is, it seems that the prevention of the outages, I mean, I totally agree that supply and redundancy for the wells is primary, but it seems like prevention of the water outages and disruption to customers, and particularly the water dependent businesses, that the failed valves, which I understand are the old cast iron universal type ones that cause such widespread outage when you have to fix a break, if those could be prioritized in a way so that when there's an instance, fewer customers are affected. And then if there's any way to have some kind of air cushion or something that dampens the effect of a water hammer that seems to have caused so many things. When you're replacing the valve, can you also then do something, a vertical pipe with a cap so that the air can compress it?
So adding pressure relief valves is also on the agenda for priorities. We have 5 air relief valves in the system right now, and I think one of the first things we need to do is determine which valves are working and which valves aren't working in the system, because that will allow us to model proper procedure for shutting down the system. And also, if we have issues, it will tell us how to manipulate the valves so that we're not causing additional surges within an area. And then it will also tell us where we need to add pressure relief to the system to help alleviate those concerns. So it's all sort of connected.
Okay.
But first thing is that we need to know which valves are actually operational. And it's not necessarily just one type of valve, unfortunately. It's really just not one material that we're dealing with. It's a lot of different materials.
Well, it just seemed like the prevention of, or lessening the likelihood of or extent of outages is more important than, and certainly more cost effective than whole new transmission lines. What you're talking about on Exchange Street, on Happy Valley Road, for example, is a long distance and quite a circuitous route from the new reservoir or from the well to the industrial park. It doesn't really address the breaks that are shown in the cluster map on Exchange Street and in the industrial park. Just connects to the end by the bridge school.
Yeah.
What I gather. And I just wondering about the other piece of it is that, the town plan has quite a section of Happy Valley Road that's zoned forest and, is not going to be developed. So, or unless the town plan is amended. So I just wonder about whether that particular project, which you, on your list, you had scheduled for FY25, engineering the Happy Valley Road connection, is that?
I think, Fred, as we mentioned in the infrastructure committee meeting, anytime you use SRF funding, you have to go through an alternatives process to show that that is the most cost-effective and best project to move forward. So none of these projects would be advanced if they weren't the most cost-effective, best alternative. That's something that has to be considered in the very early stages of any of these.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I just want to say quickly that I think some of the holdup and replacing and improving Exchange Street is there's not water redundancy there. So in order to repair that, where it breaks, we have to shut all those users off and they have no water.
Mhm.
And so the priority for bringing water from Happy Valley Road allows us to feed those customers water while we're repairing that historically bad section of Exchange Street. And so that is one reason for the priority in that road. It creates redundancy for that area. So when we have issues, those customers are not out of water.
So the line on Happy Valley Road would go from where it ends now just north of Painter Road to beyond the Bridge School and all the way into where the cluster of breaks are in the industrial park to bypass those break sections? Is that what you're saying?
No, I don't know that if it goes, I don't know the details of that, but
How's it going to provide redundancy if it doesn't bypass
because
the break?
it comes into where like Manelli Road is.
Okay, so the cluster of
So,
breaks
can
are
we,
beyond that.
can we just move on?
Okay.
We'll talk more about water at another one, but the map we're looking at has a lot more breaks on Exchange Street than there have been in recent years. There's been a lot of work done down there. So I think when we actually have some more current data, it'll be helpful. And
Okay.
so Emily, did you have anything else? You got the Northern Borders water tank?
Northern Borders, we were invited to submit for the full application, for the Northern Borders grant, which would award potentially $1 million to the project. So it's due May 3rd. We're going with May 3rd. One part of the application says May 5th, but we're going to submit by May 3rd.
Good idea.
Yeah, we'll err on the side of caution. And then the Adams Acres stormwater treatment is the Boardman Street development of businesses that the town is a co-permittee on for stormwater. We received a $232,000 grant award, of which we will then have to match $58,000 towards design and construction of that system. So we currently have that project in the feasibility study that's being worked on, and so that study is designing it to the 30% level. So we have pretty good understanding of what we can and can't do over there and what will be required from the state. So moving forward, I can try to tag some additional funding, try to find some additional grant funding, but at least this alleviates some of the costs from the overall project.
Great.
And then the only other thing, I think that's it that I have on here, but Heather, to circle back with your comment regarding Creek Road at the beginning, the water is about a foot from the northern gate as of yesterday. So depending on how much rain we get in the next 24 hours, potentially they could open it back up, but they will still have to grade it and do some, just basic maintenance work to be able to get it passable again.
Okay, great. Thanks for the update, Emily. Just was curious if, how that road was holding up and if we would see it open up. So thank you.
Yep, no problem.
That's the only grind for tonight, Emily. Thank you very much for
You're welcome.
joining us. Hope you get your camera going.
Thanks.
Thanks, Emily.
We got Chief Emergency Management Plan.
We have a chief.
Former chief,
Yeah.
former police chief, now the Emergency Management Director.
Hi, Tom.
Oh my God, look at him.
Oh. Do we have a ponytail too? No. Or man, sorry.
Call, Dan, just call.
guess it's time for you to just approve the emergency management plan for this year. I would caution you that there's a couple of legal precepts in this plan. You're giving a lot of authority to the town manager in this plan to act in an emergency. So just understand that. And the other issue is the precedence of command, the survivor should the town manager not be available to do the job. So we had a list of positions there that fill that position. And just as long as you're good with it, the plan gets approved, that's how it is.
And now we're elevating Chief Covey to the Emergency Management Director position with this plan.
Yes, he will take over as soon as this meeting is done, and I'll put his name on the plan and send it up to emergency management.
Okay, any questions?
I'll move to appoint Chief Jason Covey as the Town of Middlebury's Emergency Management Director under the 2024 Emergency Management Plan.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 I'll move to approve the draft version of the 2024 Middlebury Emergency Management Plan.
Second.
Seconded by Farhad. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Easy enough.
Chief, you're enjoying retirement.
I'm trying.
Thank you, Chief, for all of your years as Middlebury's excellent emergency management director.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you for stepping forward when we had the crisis with the water system. Really appreciate you coming out of retirement to help us out.
Yeah, well, that was a bit of a challenging time. I was on vacation in Connecticut with my wife. She got sick and needed emergency surgery, so I'm talking to reporters from the room in the hospital.
Oh my gosh.
Out of my hotel room and parked in a, wayside on the highway talking to people. It's just,
That's wild.
I know, it's just the way things go.
So
Thank
hopefully
you.
she's okay now.
Yeah, everything's good.
Good. All right, Chief. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
All right, good night, everybody, thank you.
Good night. Good to see you.
Kathleen, you want to discuss the FERC notice?
So as Fred mentioned last time, a low impact way to stay abreast of what's going on with in the FERC process and the application of New England hydropower is to file a motion to intervene. It's not necessarily a negative thing. It's just to stay in the loop. I discussed it with the town agent, town council, Benj Putnam, before he went on vacation, and he suggested that we work with the town's hydropower attorney to file. We have a hydropower attorney.
Wow, okay.
And to file the motion to intervene.
That's weird that we're not a statutory party, given that we own the property and we're party to it already, so.
If you're looking for some fun reading, Google on the Federal Power Act of 1920. Sections in which they have the power of condemnation, and the select board can get a hearing notice at some point. But federal preemption policy and development of hydro dating back from the 1920s is something that most people don't really appreciate until they're subjected to it.
Well, then maybe we should just get on the list.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it.
So I move to authorize the town manager to work with legal counsel to submit a motion to intervene with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission relating to the pending application of New England Hydropower Company regarding Middlebury Falls.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments or questions? Hearing none. Oh, Victoria?
What's the town standing in terms of the standards for water flows remaining over the falls and, I mean, do you have some say over how much water they can take out through the power plant? I mean, last year when there was no water going over the falls, it upset a lot of people, to say nothing about what it does to the biology, ecology of the river, the water.
Yeah, I can comment on that. So the state has a water quality certificate that it has to issue in connection with the FERC process. So there's two parts to this. There's a preliminary permit and then a license. The preliminary permit process gives the applicant the exclusive right to study and the exclusive right to file for the license to build and operate the plant and go from there. So when they're studying it, they have to study the impact on the river, water quality, among other things. And back when CVPS was proposing to redevelop the Falls Hydro Project in 1981, the town, there's another part of it that requires additional consideration if it affects parkland. And from the archives, I brought a political cartoon of the town at the time it voted for a park, the Jessica Swift Park there, but it shows the falls dried up. This was in the Valley Voice back then. The town has been concerned about adequate flow over the falls dating back to that early time. The unique situation that existed last summer was a very low flow period, and the fact that the flume that was reconstructed by the homes was opened and actually diverted much of the flow, actually eroding the town land, Jessica Swift Park, below. And that flume is not really property or control of the town. It was part of an earlier FERC application for hydro that CVPS had earlier in history, and that the homes rebuilt. So one of the issues in this process will be, will they have to excavate?
For concerns. Heather.
I don't have any.
Fred.
I'm going to be away. I'm going to try to move a boat north. So next meeting, I may be zooming in. If I'm somewhere where there's cell service. And I'll be back in any event by the end of the night.
Okay. Isabel, what's that? I got Victoria. We already answered your question early in the thing. I read it, and so I'll get with you offline. Okay. So, you're welcome. Isabel?
I've got nothing.
Okay, Dan?
Nothing. Thank you.
The only thing I have, you. Yeah.
Chop
Chopped
over
liver.
here.
Yeah, well, I figured you were taking over his chair, so I was just
I just want to publicly congratulate my wonderful wife on being brought into the NBER, the National Bureau of Economic Researchers. Quite a
Wow.
prestigious honor for her. Yeah.
Oh, congratulations.
That's all.
That's big.
Yeah.
That's not just all. So the only thing I had was to just let everybody know that I did write a op-ed in support of the bond vote. Since the board supported it, I wrote an op-ed asking people to get out and vote and to vote for it. If anybody wants a copy of it, I've asked that it be in this week's paper. If anybody wants a copy, I can email it to you, but it just basically said what the board has voted on and asking for their support. So
Great.
we do have need for an executive session.
I move to find that premature general public knowledge regarding the negotiation of a contract would clearly place the town at a substantial disadvantage because the discussion will divulge the town's position on contract provisions to be negotiated.
Second. Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to enter into executive session with the inclusion of town manager and assistant town manager to discuss the negotiation of a contract as allowed under Title I, Section 313A1A.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're going into executive session at 8:45.